Today's episode of Running It Back is here and brought to you by my iPad. It's an iPad mini. It's white. And I've dropped it only 27 times in the time that I've owned it. Still works. Today on the show, Clara Dryden joins me. I hadn't talked with her in a really long time. Clara and I used to work at the same bike store. It was the very first job I had when I moved to Los Angeles, and as I found out, it was her very first job in the bicycle industry. Also, we talk about her path into cycling, her upbringing, her interests, and she's from Canada. We get into all of that. Hey, don't forget, if you're new to my YouTube channel, don't forget to check out my other show on the channel, The Sunday Night Talk, with me and Omar Carmona. We talk NFL every Sunday night. We talk sports, movies, everything on a Sunday night. We're talking playoffs right now, and we have our very own football movie bracket playoff going on as we speak, so you got to listen to that. Also, everybody, catch me doing live stand-up comedy this month, Saturday the 23rd, 5 p.m. West Coast time. I'm on the Flappers Comedy Club comedy show via Zoom. You can hit me up for all the details there. You've heard me rant on here. Hear me rant in a small screen as well. You can do it. So, details to come there. But right now, running it back with my guest, Clara Dryden. Oh, Canada! Here we go.
That we don't know what to do with right now, but
it looks like you have two doors back there. I don't know if you have a men and women bathroom going on back there. Or
yes,
what?
Yeah, we just haven't had a chance to put the signs up yet, but no, it's out to our little balcony out there. So yeah,
terrific.
A little piece of paradise here.
Let me give you the one and only super duper intro.
Okay, cool.
With me on the screen today, Clara Dryden. Clara, it's been like a million years, number one, since we saw each other. But we worked at the same bicycle store together. And that was my very first job in Los Angeles.
I didn't know that.
Your first job in LA too? Was that your first job in the bicycle industry?
It was actually. So,
really?
Yeah. So I'd never worked in the bike industry before. I've only ever ridden bicycles before that. And it was actually, I started off volunteering at the bike shop because I actually wasn't even legally allowed to work there. So,
wait, you were a volunteer initially at the store we worked at?
Totally. Yeah. That's how I got in. Yeah. So when I moved here from Canada, and for like 2 years, I couldn't work because I didn't have like a work authorization. And so I was just looking for things to do. So I actually taught film production at Santa Monica College for like a couple semesters. I was like a teacher's assistant there. And because I could do it because I was still considered a student. And then I also volunteered at the bike shop. And so I kind of approached the manager there at the time and said, do you have a need for anyone to just sort of like lead bike rides and hang around the shop all day? And She was like really cool. And she was like, yeah, totally. Like, start off like that. And so I did that until I had my work authorization. And then I started working officially at the shop when I got my green card. So.
Oh, I didn't know that's how you came to start working at that store. So
totally,
you didn't you just walked in and said, can I be associated somehow in the store till I can legally work?
Totally.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I was just like, it gets boring after a while not being able to work and like legally not able to do anything, right? So, it was just, I needed something to fill my time. I wanted to kind of give back to the community somehow and see if there was any way I could get to learn about the cycling industry because I thought maybe that was something I wanted to go into. And so I thought to myself, well, I might as well use this time to get to know the industry and see if that's something I really want to get into. So that's why I just took a took a chance and went to the bike shop. And I actually went there because they had a women's ride that they kicked off. I don't remember if that was like March or something like back then. And so I just showed up at the shop and I had such a fun time that I was like, hey, I wonder if there's something there that I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What was,
so
that's how like a lot of us, I've worked at a million bike stores. That's how a lot of us like come to work in a bike stores. We're like customers, or we kind of frequent the store at first. And then at some point you're like, hey, can I work here? And they're like, yeah, you can, they already sort of know you, or you're friendly. And then you're just sort of like in the mix, you're in the flow with it. So it's kind of weird because the cycling industry attracts a lot of people who have a passion for the activity. No one goes into working in a bike store because they're like, this is a growing industry. This is an industry that I can make a living at. They go into it because they have a passion for it. So it's kind of a weird kind of reversal, because it's never an industry that you can make a lot of money, but it's an industry that a lot of people go into that have a passion. So
totally.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting sort of workplace and expertise and dynamic. What was your relationship with cycling before that bike store?
Yeah, so I actually fell into cycling. So I've always been an athlete, and I sort of like lost my way at some point after a lot of like injuries and just not really knowing what to do with myself. And one of my friends one day said to me, you should try a spin class. And this was back in Montreal. So it was like February, middle of winter. I haven't quite understood the conversion to Fahrenheit yet, but I remember it was like minus 40 Celsius that day. And I like bring myself to spin class, and I'm all cocky, and I'm like, this is going to be the easiest thing, right? Like riding a bike. Like, like I was really, really sort of like so sure of myself. So I get on this friggin' bike, and like 20 minutes into the ride, like into the spin class, I'm like close to puking. Like I'm just really uncomfortable. I'm like finding this really hard. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, so I immediately
you liked
fell in
it.
love.
It was tough, but you enjoyed it?
Yeah, totally.
On the very
that's
first
the kind
try.
Of sport,
wow.
Yeah. So I loved it so much. And so I waited a couple months, and a really good friend of mine who was a really good cyclist said, I'll get you like hooked up with a bike friend of mine that owns a shop, and he can get you started like on a really good entry-level bike, an entry-level road bike, and I'll take you out and see if you like it. And coincidentally, my brother started cycling around the same time. And he's going to hate me for saying this, but he's much older than I am. We have a pretty big age difference, but so he was kind of like getting into it. I was getting into it. And we started just riding. And like my first ride was like 50 miles, I think, on a road bike. And I just had like leggings and like a t-shirt. Like I didn't know what I was doing. He was teaching me how to clip in, clip out. And then that's where it started. And literally a year after that, I was cycling solo in Switzerland. I did a 7-day bike ride through the Alps of Switzerland on my own. The year after that, I went to France, Italy, so I've been all over the place on the bike.
Wow.
And I started off with like a super inexpensive, like aluminum frame, giant road bike. And I did that
really?
all like Switzerland, France, like I went everywhere on this thing, and it didn't really matter, So it was a lot of fun.
I didn't know that. It's always a story when someone says, how'd you get into cycling? Someone sort of champions the idea with them. Everybody, like the same way I got into it, someone was like, hey, you want to go mountain biking? I'm like, what's mountain biking? And they're like, I'll take you. And then you're like, that was pretty fun. You want to see some other trails? And then they take you to other trails. They're like, you know what you should get? And then they just sort of like kind of guide you along. And then they sort of push you out on your own at some point, and then you take it from there. Everybody has that story of someone takes them along that first sort of initial little bit. So you had that,
and
too,
I think
with
it's
your
critical.
brother. That's cool.
Totally.
Very.
And I think it's critical who kind of introduces it to you, right? Because like cycling, I feel, is really competitive, and you can really get started and feel overwhelmed really quickly and kind of feel like out of your depth. And if you join the wrong group ride on your first ride and they're like just leaving you in the smoke, it can feel really discouraging. And so I really do think it makes a difference, kind of like who introduces it to you, what kind of mindset you are, what kind of rider you are. Like there's so many people doing cycling for so many different reasons, right? And so I think like having a really good first experience of cycling, that also makes a big difference in terms of like how you're going to perceive the sport and kind of want to continue in it, I think.
It's easy to forget, but cycling is so dependent on community because it's such a social activity, but you wouldn't think that. You go out with your friends, and it's not something, I always tell this to people who don't ride a bike. It's like, you're not out there huffing and puffing the whole way. It's very conversational as you're cruising out from your house or to wherever you're going. You talk about stuff. And the same thing with the spin class. I used to be a spin class instructor. And
really? I didn't know that.
When I signed up, when I did it, I was like, yeah, but I hate spinning. I can't do this. And the class was going to be X amount of time. But once you got going and everybody started chit chatting and kind of like getting rolling, we were like, oh, okay. Yeah. Once we get started, we're going to be okay. And then you were like, well, I can't stop pedaling. Everybody's going to see me. I might as well keep going. And then you all get through it. So after the like spin class, after I had done it for a couple of years, I was like, if you'd given me all these workouts to do, and I set myself up in my home, I would do exactly 9 minutes of this and then I would quit. But the fact that you have everybody coming in, everybody's depending on everybody to do it. You're like, yeah, I got to do it now. That's the underrated part about it, is that you have a group of people to sort of go along with you and have fun and stuff. So it's important. It's big time important. But let's go way back. You grew up in Canada? You were born and raised there?
I did. Yeah. Really? So East Coast, Montreal. So I'm French speaking. Actually, French is my first language. So
oh, really?
I had to do like remedial English when I went to high school because I couldn't really write in English properly, and my grammar was horrible. So,
ironically, I went to school with a few people who had to take remedial English too, and it was their first language. So don't feel so bad.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. That makes me feel better. And so, totally grew up in the small suburbs of Montreal. And so, I mean, it was just, at the time, I really didn't think much about it, right? Because that was my upbringing. 30 years of my life was spent in Canada. But I think as soon as I kind of got like my first trip, my first European trip wasn't until I was like almost in my 30s also. Like I was like 25 or 26 when I kind of like actually left North America for the first time. And I got the bug for travel, and I think that's what's like, I think brought us down here to California too, was just like that need and that desire to want to live in a different place and experience a different culture. And California felt pretty safe to do that in too, because it's not such a huge culture shock, right? Compared to Canada. I mean, we do say out about, we do say, and, we are a socialist country, so that's a little bit different too, but, let's not get into the politics, I guess. But there's definitely, it's not until I moved here that I was like, oh yeah, there actually are quite a few differences between, Canada and the US. So, but yeah, that's where I spent my life.
What, you said you were always an athlete. What sports were you participating in? You did it as a kid on in school? How did you do it?
Yeah, well, actually, no, not even in school. So I started when I was around 4. My dad enrolled me into Taekwondo and Judo. And so he just really wanted me. He had done judo also at a competitive level when he was younger and through university. And so he knew some of the teachers, and he was just like, let's give it a go and see if she likes it. And I was the only girl in my school for decades, actually. And so, I started at 4. I started Taekwondo. I also did skiing, quite competitively, and then also swimming. So it's like just any sport I just really enjoyed. And, my mom and dad kind of like wanted to make sure I wasn't taking on too much. So at some point I kind of chose Taekwondo as my main competitive sport, and the other ones were more for like leisure. Although I still went skiing like all the time, and I swam a lot, and I became a lifeguard, etc. But anyways, Taekwondo was really the one. And so, yeah, I practiced until I was like 21, and then I had a really bad knee injury, had to stop, and then kind of never took it up again. So yeah, but
what was your injury?
Just like wear on the knee. So it was just like a lot of swelling all the time, too many cortisone injections. I have like huge cysts like that just are recurring. So it was just like really just nonstop, like just always recurring. And I think when I took the break from Taekwondo, that's when I realized it was around the time that it actually was looking to go into the Olympics. And so it would have meant like just a lot of sacrifice to be able to go back in and compete to get to the Olympics, because I'd won the Pan American Championships and for my division. And so I had the potential of going, but I don't know, just something in me was like, I don't know that I want to make this like my life calling necessarily. Like I want to go to school and I want to have like, you know, a childhood, quote unquote, because I had never really had that growing up. Like every weekend was spent training, going to competitions when all my friends were out having fun. And so I think when I hit my 20s, I was like, nah, like I'm done. I want to break and I want to like party and like drink. And yeah, like maybe not the best decision, but I have no regrets at this point. So
you're like, I'm 20 years old. I already know how to kick ass. It's time to party.
Yeah, kind of, you know, so yeah.
And the most responsible plan I've ever heard from a 21-year-old.
I know, seriously, never leave it up to a 20-year-old to make a big life-changing decision.
Yeah, and you did. I don't know how you did it.
I did. Yeah.
Why'd you think your dad got you into it? He was competitive
in judo. Yeah. Oh, so we actually practiced together for quite a few years. Like he'd go with me to the class, and like we traveled a lot to the US when I was a kid just to like spend our summers there and stuff. And he would always find like a Taekwondo class, like a school that I could continue going to when like in the summertime. I did like training camps in Connecticut. Like it was just a lot of fun. And I'll always remember the time where my dad was like, I can't support you anymore in this, like in your training, because I kicked him so hard. I almost broke his ribs. And so he was like, okay, like I can drive you to the competitions and kind of support you in this, but I can't be your training partner anymore. So, so that's when I knew it was time to move on to like, you know,
you and I had very different dads.
What, you didn't kick your dad, like, or at least you didn't feel like kicking your dad?
My dad taught me how to yell at the TV while watching sports. So maybe a little difference of an experience.
Yeah. Still, you know.
And you had an older brother? Do you have any other siblings?
So I do, half. So my dad was married previously, and he had 3 kids. And so we actually have a pretty big age difference from like 16 to 12 years older than me. So they're all in their 50s, actually, my siblings. And so, and they're all still back in Canada. One of them is in the Montreal area, and the other ones are near Ottawa. So, yeah.
I see. Growing up in sports, what kind of kid were you? Were you like a really competitive, outgoing kid?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like too much energy. Totally. Like my mom said, like that was the only way they could sort of channel the energy. And I think it's like that today. Like if I don't get out there and like do sports and really push it, at some point I just start really getting angry and frustrated and like I can't focus.
Really?
And so, yeah.
You don't strike me as someone like that.
No, well, that's because I do sports.
Because of
yeah, keep me locked in long enough, and you will find out.
Like the wolf man when he sees the full moon.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, I always say that to people. Like I grew up in sports, and I always say that to people now. I went to college, and I went to an art college, and everybody was into art, into being in their own heads, into introspection. And then as a byproduct, everybody was sort of depressed. So I would say this later too. I would be like, just go out and go walk. Go get one foot in front of the other. And I had a
Yeah.
friend who hated exercise, hated sports. I think he had a bad experience somewhere. I'm like, it's not go break out a sweat, burn a million calories. Just go start moving. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna feel better whenever it's like anxiety, depression. I can't fly. I need a support dog. I'm like, diet and exercise. What's your diet? What's your
Totally. Oh my
exercise?
God. Yeah.
Start
Totally
really,
agree with
really
you.
simple and just
Yeah.
start putting one foot in front of the other. So the
Yeah.
relationship of mind to body exercise is so crucial.
Mm-hmm.
You get out there on a bicycle, on a treadmill, go walk around your block. Your mind sort of takes over, it sort of starts
Yeah.
to work itself out as a step one, essentially.
Totally. Yeah.
I've
And there's
always
actually
felt.
like a physiological, like, effect of actually doing exercise. Like it actually, adjusts your hormones. And so it's like, it really does gives you those really good feeling when you do exercise. And so I really do think that's critical. And it's tough though. Like I think it's tough to find the balance because I feel for me, like when I want to go, like I need to go hard and for like a really long time. And so sometimes I'll actually kind of like, if I know I only have 20 minutes to half an hour, I'm kind of like I don't have time. I can't get a full workout in. And sometimes
Mhm.
I think to myself, yeah, like I should still go and do something in that time because like it's better than nothing. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's you kind of crave, the more you do, the more you crave and the more like extreme you kind of want to push it. And
Mhm.
so you have to be okay with those, like the shorter ride or that quick walk around the block, and like totally be okay with that. It doesn't have to be like that century ride every time you go on your bike.
Mhm.
But it's hard to kind of get past that sometimes.
Yeah, we end up putting our recreation in the back seat because
Mhm.
we all have, we have lives and work and stuff and travel,
Yeah.
and then you're trying to fit it in. So you really do have to make a conscious effort to schedule it at some point. And then that's where
Yeah.
the community part comes into it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
6 a.m. every day I go to spin class, or Saturdays at 8, we all meet, and you sort of have a
Mhm.
structure. It's really easy to forget that. I think as people, we almost crave structure. We
Yeah.
almost want a routine to do our stuff, and
Mhm.
it will open yourself up to like other stuff that way. Once you sort of put all the little stuff in order, and you're like, all right, okay, now
Mhm.
I'm on a track, and now I can go forward from here. I've always felt that way anyway,
Totally. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Totally agree with that.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, like, so you did skiing, you did
Yep.
swimming, you did
Yeah.
Taekwondo, and then you
Yeah.
said like you wanted to have a childhood at age 20. So you don't feel you had a
Yeah.
childhood?
No, like it was
Did you
just
have
so
friends?
like I did, but like they were like school friends for the most part. Like I would see them
Mhm.
during the school, like Monday to Friday. And I really had good friends in high school that I'm still friends with today. Like we're so
Hmm.
close. But it was really, I felt like actually that relationship only developed after I stopped like doing sports, like
Right.
intensely. And I, and so really, I think like when I hit 20, I like just, and I had that knee injury and I was sort of like bedridden for a while. It was kind of like, I don't know that I want to go back to it. And I felt all this pressure and all this questioning around like, was it really my dream or was it like my dad's dream
Hmm.
to like get, this far? And so after really thinking about it a lot, I thought to myself, well, I can always take a break and like come back to it. And so over the last few years, I've tried other martial arts. Like I've done Kyokushin karate, I've done jujitsu, I've tried Muay Thai, and most recently, like I've been thinking really before the pandemic hit, like Krav Maga, and just like to try to get into like some like just moving my body again with the martial arts. And so
Mhm.
I just don't know that I'd do it competitively, obviously. And to start now is kind of like craziness, but unless they have a geriatric division, I don't know. But
What is it
but
about
yeah.
martial arts to know about? If someone is like a novice or saying like, I want to get into it, what is it that is beneficial or did you get enjoyment out of it? How would you
Yeah.
describe it?
Yeah,
Cause
like
I
I'm
know very little about it. I see people doing it and I hear a lot of people talking about it now, but I don't know how someone would describe it to me.
yeah, so I think the way I see it, like there's so many different levels there in terms of like what you get out of martial arts. But like the first thing that I can really say is for the younger, like if you've got kids, I think like personally, I feel it's such a discipline. Like, and if you go towards a martial art or a school also that focuses on the more traditional form of martial art, where there's like forms and you bow to your master when you're coming in, and you have to have a clean uniform and you have to be organized and prepared and you have to be on time or else you like get penalized for that. It's like such a rigorous like discipline around that I felt like as a kid it was actually really good, and for the type of kid I really needed that because I was just like so much energy, so I needed something
Mhm.
where I could be like pulled in a little bit. So that's like on one level. The other one is it's just badass. Like
Mhm.
you're like fighting. You're literally like the type of taekwondo I did was the World Taekwondo Federation, and so it's full contact. So it's full contact kick to the head, full contact kick to the body, like no restraint. And so you knock people out, you get hurt, you
Mhm.
have injuries, you cry, you bleed, you have like a ton of bruises. So I just kind of feel like it's also kind of badass, and especially for girls to have that like as
Mhm.
a tool, in certain situations. I have had to use it a couple times, and so for me, it's kind of like it's pretty cool.
Oh,
And then the last thing is it just like it's such a good physical activity. So rather than going to the gym and doing like your boring routine at your weights, you're actually getting like so much exercise, but like without even really realizing. Like you get
wow.
ripped from head to toe doing martial arts. So yeah, for me those like kind of like the top three reasons why I'd want to
Yeah.
get into it.
Did you like being the only girl in it, or was it weird growing up with being the only girl in your
Yeah,
taekwondo stuff, or did you like it?
I think I liked it. Like for the longest time, I didn't even know, right? Because
Mhm.
for me, it was just like I was one of the guys. So boys would just like treat me like one of them. And it was like a lot of fun. And like, it was just so much like, I didn't even see the difference. And if anything, it was really fun for me to just kind of like be in a different environment. But at some point, like obviously physical differences started showing up. And so suddenly, like, I wasn't treated in the same way. Um, there was times where like I was really like qualified and due to get my next belt, and it was like it took a little bit longer than others. Like they were kind of like advancing more quickly than I was, so I really had to like advocate twice as hard for myself to kind of move forward in the sport, and be taken seriously. Even when I wanted to go in and like become a referee for taekwondo, you have to go through a bunch of certifications. Like
Oh.
I was the only girl in the class, and so you're like sitting there hearing really rude remarks and comments, and you kind of have to develop a thick skin around that.
Yeah.
So in a way, I feel like if you have the character to kind of like deal with that and kind of brush it off and like defend yourself and be strong and tough, like then you're okay. But back then, like we saw a lot of girls, some of them just didn't continue in the sport because it was a bit rough.
Yeah. Oh, I like
So yeah,
that. I didn't know
yeah,
that sort of aspect of it.
yeah.
I was
Today
thinking
is
about
different.
that. Really? I
Yeah.
think about that too with sports for me growing up is being part of a team is important, working out with your friends, working towards a common goal. But as a kid, like as a little kid, I was a crier. Like in
Oh no.
like in the early grades, I was a crier. Yeah, I mean, I was young. I was like, 29.
Hmm.
But then like I got into sports at school, and once it wore off that the coaches were going to yell at you and you're going to fall
Hmm.
down, you're going to get dirt kicked in your face. And then I was like, hey, I didn't die. Oh, I'll be
Yeah.
all right. And then I sort of like made it through that. But yeah, I was a big wuss kid
Aw.
early on. But then once you got used to it, you were like, oh, okay, I made it through. I got some thick skin. I got immunity to it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they yell in your face. You're going to be all right. So I think that's important. As a little kid,
Totally.
you got to take your lumps. and keep
Yeah,
showing
it
up.
builds resilience, it definitely
Yeah.
builds your resilience. And I think, and again, like there's a fine line though, right, between that and like really knocking someone down to the point where it's like totally destroying them. And so I think like you have to understand, like I eventually started teaching Taekwondo as I got older and had more experience, and you kind of have to gauge the kids and sort of like understand like how much they can take, right? And some of them, they need a proper like disciplining. Like we had some really troubled kids coming in, and it was like the parents literally were sending them there because like it was that or like military school. Like it was like that serious, and
Yeah.
and it's like some of them, it's like, giving them a swift kick, like especially getting it from a girl is like, that was sort of just eye opening, while with others, if you did that, it would have been like soul crushing and you would have like really just lost them. So you kind of had to gauge, so I think coaches, like also like coaches, teachers, what have you, like they play a really important role in kind of like understanding and gauging like how much the kids can take, so, but yeah, I think a little bit of like tough love sometimes is like not such a bad thing. Like I think
definitely.
that's how I'm trying to raise my kid. It's kind of like, it's not always cotton swab and like, just like cozy blankets. It's like, no, there's a little bit of tough love. And I think that's totally fine.
I imagine it would be extra hard as a parent too, to find the line between tough love, shake it off, and, taking care of your kid. Cause you are the parent, you want the best for your kid. I don't have kids. My brother has 2 little kids, and it is funny because you want to like pick them up, you want to hug them and stuff. But yeah, you also want to like kind of like have them kind of experience stuff and fall down and stuff. So, and then of course, I always ask my brother, like, what sports should you force upon them? What do you think he would be into? And I was like, oh, the boy, he just likes to play around. The girl, I can't get through that one. Forget that one. I don't know what she's going to do her own things. What sport would you choose to force upon your own kid, do you think? What would be the best one?
Oh my God. So Jade totally loves running. Like she is a runner. Like ever since she could walk and run, like she literally ran away from us like on multiple occasions. And so it's like, stick her in a field and she loves to run. So right now I'm kind of leaning towards like soccer. I think that would be really fun for her. And the other thing too is I never did team sports. So like taekwondo, swimming, skiing were mostly like individual sports. Like I competed at individual levels, and I felt like I kind of missed out on something there, like not being part of a team sport, to the point where when I would go to school and have to do teamwork, I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, I have to like work with other people. And so I think that would like be something that would be really good for her. And then of course, if I can get her into like martial arts, I would absolutely love that, because I think she would have a lot of fun. And then I could do what my dad did and just kind of like maybe go with her and totally embarrass her, but that's okay.
Yeah. You got to do that at least a couple times for your kid.
Yeah.
You got to embarrass them. I was telling someone a story yesterday about how I was going to the 8th grade dance, and my mom was not forcing me to go, but she was like, you got to go meet some girls from other schools. This is a dance. There's going to be other kids there. And she bought me black pants and a black shirt. And the black shirt had a banded collar. Do you remember these shirts that had banded collars? And I go and I'm like, I'm looking cool. I'm looking cool. And I get there and the first words out of my friends, hey, why are you dressed like a priest? And I looked down like, oh shit, you're right. I look like a priest. God damn it, Mom. How could you do this to me?
She knew. She thought it was funny.
I think she knew. I think my mom knew. It's burned in my memory
totally.
30 years later.
God. Yeah, you still talk about it. There must be something there.
I'm a very scarred individual.
Yeah.
What I was thinking though, from working at the bike store with you is I was sales and stuff, but you were like a community something. What was your job? You were putting on full on events though at the store.
Yes. Yeah, totally. So I think what we were looking for was a couple of things. Was, obviously like synergy, the bike shop at the time was just, trying to do some community outreach and get more people to come in through the shop. And they also had this like goal of trying to make the shop a place to hang out, and somewhere that people wanted to come to. And I guess there's like a part of it that's proven also, like, of course, if people are hanging out at the shop, there's going to be more sales, right? But there's also something about developing the community also. And so when I first proposed, like, this is what I could do, it initially started with just like, let me lead some group rides and see where that takes us. And then eventually, when we got closer to building more of these community rides, it became clear, like, I couldn't do that on my own. And so I was like, why don't we just get some other cyclists in the community that have time, different types of skills, you know, like maybe more towards mountain biking or like maybe just road rides, etc. And so that's kind of like what I started developing, was putting together the ideas of building that community into something bigger, you know. And so, and obviously we had the backing of another big company behind us. And so that helped as well. But that was kind of the idea. But it was tough. It was tough because there's a lot of competition here in California, right? Like there's a lot of bike shops and people are quite loyal to the bike shops that they go to the point where I even think they're quite loyal to the people that own the bike shops. And so I think it's, if people start leaving a bike shop and being replaced with others, you're probably going to see a change in terms of like who your clients and your customers are that are coming to the store. And so that was tough to build, you know, like it was a tough one to build. And I think one of the things too we didn't want to do was create this really big like speed ride where it's like you have to be a really good cyclist and in order to be able to join these rides. And we thought that we had found maybe like a niche there, but it turns out that I think a lot of cyclists in Southern California really just want to do it for like the speed. And so
California is a big one. Where I lived before, LA in Salt Lake City was another big one where there was a tremendous amount of competitive riders. The loyalty thing is really hard to put your finger on, because you're right. They are some very loyal customers to stores. However, I worked at a store once and then I switched. I worked at a different store in the same city. And then I went to this different store and then customers would come in and I would say, "Hey, I thought you just went to the others. You come here too?"
You're cheating.
There was a lot of that. And it really surprised me. I was like, "You come here too?" And he's like, "Well, hey." And at first it felt like I was catching them. And then you just realize the consumer first looks at, you know, where can I shop? Who has a selection? Very rarely does a customer go to one place and one place only. So it was interesting to see that dynamic with the events though. I remember you put on an event that had wine and cheese.
Yeah.
And you were setting it up, and the rest of us grunts in dirty t-shirts were like, "Oh, we got to get the hell out of here. This is not for us. Clara's got a thing going on here. We're going to scare off the straights with this one." You had wine, cheese, you had like tabletop set up. It looked really, really good. All the stores I've worked at that want to put on events and things, you're right. The first thing they want to put on is women's events. And when people say like the women market is underutilized, not in retail. They have known for a while that women control more of the household income. They do more research when shopping. I would remember over 10 years ago, reps from industry and retail and bike stores were like, hire women, have a women's section. And I was like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. The hard part is no women want to work in a bike store.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's tough.
That's the hard part. It's a weird dynamic with the bike store because men who work at the bike store like bikes. And I think it's almost a perfect antisocial thing to do, to work with your hands, because it's completely mechanical. There's no sort of gray area. It's A plus B equals C. Women who work in the bike store typically are in school and they want experience and they're moving on. They have goals beyond the bike store. The rest of us guys are like, "Can I get a discount?" Sweet. I'm going to work here for the rest of my life. So the events show it too. Yeah. The events the women put on, the events the guys put on are totally unique like that. So yeah, your wine and cheese event, I was like, oh, right. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Women. Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's not to say that like, you know, that's how I am all the time. Right. Like I really do like to rough it. And I think what we wanted it to be though, was something that just demonstrated how important we were seeing this, you know, and how important this was for the bike shop. I think as a woman, sometimes it's really tough to get into these types of sports because traditionally they
Really
are
hard.
kind of
Yeah.
like led by men. You know, you go into a bike shop and you walk in and it's like there's this sort of like underlying expectation that you don't really know much about cycling, right? Or even as a rider, you know, it's like the number of times, like just a couple months ago, I was riding and I passed a friend of mine going up a hill and some other guy was like, "You're going to let her pass you like that?" And I was like, "What the hell? Like, seriously."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I am a stronger rider than my friend is who happens to be a male. So who cares, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like you still get that. And so I think we just wanted to show like how dedicated we were to doing that. And so that's why we wanted to like make a really nice event for it. And just say like, it's not because you're in cycling that it can't be classy, right? Like, you know, it's like, yeah, you can still like be a badass on a bike and, you know, rough it out when you have to, but you can also like dress nice and wear makeup and drink wine and cheese if you want to. And you can do that too, Patrick, if you want. You can wear makeup if you feel like it.
Thank you. Finally, somebody says it.
I know, right?
It's funny with the men to women thing because the two dynamics merge in cycling because there's no differentiating it. You all kind of ride together. But I definitely have been friends with pro women riders and they'll say like, guys will see me out on the road and they'll try super hard to pass me.
Yeah.
And these are pro women. And sometimes they're like, and then I go and pass them back or I see them as like, it's just a male thing. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just sort of is built in. Also, the funny part is I had a friend and she had done 1 million group rides. And one day she said, she always rode with her husband or something. And she said, you know, I would go on these group rides. And then I realized I never changed a flat of my own for like 5 years. You go on these group rides, I would get the flat, husband jumps off his bike, takes my wheel, changes it, boyfriend, brother, guy just changed. And I was thinking about that. I've been on 1 million group rides. And if someone got a flat, I was the guy be like, give me that wheel. Let me change it for you.
Yeah.
And she was like, the guys just, they want to like take over. They want to, they have good intentions. They want to help, but yeah, they sort of like just take over. And she's like, I'd never changed a flat for 5 years.
Yeah.
Someone would always take it.
That's
it's funny
awesome,
like
though.
that. The two dynamics,
that kind of
like that are funny. Yeah.
Changing a flat on the side of the PCH is not like, it's not thrilling. It's not that much fun. You know?
That's true. How about if you had a magic wand, what community event do you think would be on the horizon? What would be the ultimate community event to put on?
You know, I think after all this like stupid pandemic stuff is done, like I think everyone's just going to be wanting to get out there and ride, right? And it's like, for me, it's just really trying to get, I'm really into educating people, right? That's what I do now. And so it's like, for me, anything that can get, you know, beginner novice riders that really want to like take that first step in terms of like going out on the PCH for the first time, which can be really scary, right? Or like going up Latigo or like, you know, Decker, and they've never done it before. And so sorry if I'm like being super specific about some of the, you know, the rides out here, but
oh, that's fine.
But
you know, when you take the 405 and you exit La Cienega, you don't go north, you go east. You're going to take a left at the Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. You see not the third homeless guy, but the fourth homeless guy. Then you take a left.
Yeah, exactly. So just like, you know, like if you're stepping out of your neighborhood for the first time, or even like getting on a bike for the first time to clip, unclip, and like just learn about that whole thing. I think like that for me is the kind of like community things I would like to see, is just like getting big groups of people that are not necessarily doing it for competitive reasons, but still want to do like some fairly big rides and like kind of challenge themselves. And I think for me, that would be something that I'd love to see more of. And when and if I have more time to do that, I would love to like lead some of those too. I do it with some of my friends already. I have a few cycling friends that we go out, and they're kind of like, okay, Clara, where are we going this weekend? And I'm like, okay, let's do this ride, that ride, and it's like, well, I don't know if I can do that. And I'm like, yes, you can totally do it.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to like take our time and like, but you can always do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, like that's more the type of community stuff, because there's so many competitive rides out there, that you can do. And so I don't know that we need more of that, but I think for me, it'd be more like the camaraderie community aspect of it that I'd like to develop.
Where do you like to go on your rides? What's your typical ride? What's your long ride?
I love the Santa Monica Mountains, like absolutely love getting up there, going up into the canyons. I mean, recently I've been doing more like flat riding, Pacific Coast Highway, just because I don't have as much time right now. But when I do have long days, I just love to like shoot down the Pacific Coast Highway and then go up one of those good canyon roads and then ride along Mulholland and just like, just kind of like get lost through there. Those are some of the rides I really enjoy. And when I first moved here, actually, I did the Santa Monica to San Diego solo on my own,
really?
And I rode, and that was amazing, except getting through Long Beach was like the sketchiest thing I've ever done. Like you're riding through like where the big trucks, like through the port of LA. Mm-hmm. And it was like 6 a.m. or something. And I was just like, what am I doing? But once
you gotta
get
have a couple of those
that,
rides in you. We
seriously,
all have those.
I think the only thing that was on my side was like how naive I was, because I didn't know LA that well. And so I just mapped it like on Map My Ride, like back then.
Oh.
And I just had no idea where I was mapping to. And so I just kind of followed it, not knowing that I was getting into like the port of LA. And so I'm kind of happy that I didn't know, or else maybe I wouldn't have done it, So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow.
I love
that's pretty intense.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good ride.
Yeah. Do you have any long-term goals for yourself? What are you after down the road?
Just before this hit, I was like, I want to get back into like doing another try, like a triathlon. So I had done the Malibu Tri a few years ago. And so I really wanted to get back into it. And so, yeah, I'd love to do that. But swimming freaks me out a little bit, like on my own. Like it's funny, I'm not even afraid of sharks. And I know that the odds of getting bitten by a shark are like almost none. But there's just something about being in the open water, and like you put your head down and it's pitch black and you're just like, oh my God, what is underneath me right now? So, I want to wait till I could maybe find a group to kind of practice with. But so right now I'm just focusing on the cycling portion of the triathlon.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm with you on the water. Someone who didn't grow up around water. I grew up in the Southwest. There's no ocean. There's no water. We don't even do well with rain. When you see an ocean, the waves push you out of there. The dirt is all over. The ocean doesn't even want you in it. No. And then it doesn't help that every movie about the ocean is freaking scary. So it takes a big sort of mindset and push to get people in the ocean that didn't grow up with it, I think.
Seriously. Yeah. Like, I grew up with lakes, lakes and rivers, and it's like, the worst case, you'll get a big fish or something, but like, you're not going to get a friggin' shark or something. And so, yeah, when I did the Malibu Tri, like getting out into the water, like with the adrenaline going and the waves and everything, like I inhaled and swallowed so much water that by the time I got out and I was on the bike, it was just like pouring out of my nostrils for like the first like 10, 15 minutes that I was riding the bike. Like I was just like, it's coming out of like my eyeballs. It felt like I swallowed so much water because I was just like kind of like semi panicking and like freaked out that there was going to be something in the water, but it all worked out. It was fine. But yeah, so that's kind of like my next thing. And I think just getting out on the bike a little bit more for me is just like what I want to kind of achieve this year, and so just having more time to ride.
I was thinking about the ocean and being scared of sharks too. And every time someone tries to comfort you with the statistics and they say, well, you have more of a chance of getting hit by lightning than getting bitten by a shark. And then all your brain does is go, what about sharks now? That's all your brain does.
Totally.
And helps 0%.
Zero, yeah. And
Yeah.
also I'm thinking, well, if I didn't go in the ocean, then I would really have 0% of getting bitten by a shark. So maybe I should just avoid it.
That's just how we think. You didn't grow
Yeah.
up around oceans. That's just how it
Yeah.
works.
No,
Well,
exactly.
I have some Canada questions for you to finish off
Okay.
with.
Shoot.
Okay. Question number 1. What is Boxing Day?
Oh.
It's
So I'm not
December
gonna lie.
26th, right?
Yes. So it's
Okay.
actually like we get the day off, which I'm super bitter about because
Huh.
I'm like, I just feel like I'm totally shortchanged here in the US in terms of like how many holidays I get. But anyways, yeah, so it's the day after Christmas. And what it is today is literally people usually go shopping. So that's when you get like your big sales
Oh.
and your big deals. And you go shopping, and it's just a day to like spend money. And if you didn't get what you wanted at Christmas, you get it at Boxing Day and you get it on sale. And it still involves a lot of drinking and like usually another like family dinner where you're like fully stuffed. But
Oh.
the history of it though is a little bit darker, and it's actually rooted in people giving gifts to their slaves. And so they got a box. And so that's like where it's actually rooted. And then through time, it was like, oh, you give gifts to the poor. And I think today that's completely lost. Like people literally just use it to go shopping.
Oh, I see. But
Yeah.
originally, someone should write a book. All roads lead to. This used to be about slavery. This is how
Yeah,
it is.
I think so.
Everything
I
at
think
some
just
point goes
everything
back to
leads
slavery.
back. Yeah. Yeah.
So you go shopping the day after Christmas for the stuff you really wanted, and it's kind of like a de facto Black Friday,
huge sale. Yes,
Oh,
that's it. It's like our Black Friday, but it's
and
just
you
on
have
the
the day
26th.
off.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the
Oh,
day off, and a lot of people get between Christmas and New Year's off, but yeah, it's actually like an official holiday in Canada. So you get the 25th and the 26th. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Question number 2. Does everybody in Canada know how to ice skate?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I love
You
it.
did?
Yes. So most people do, but I wouldn't say like everybody. But it's definitely, like a very classic winter sport to do. And I would say like everyone I know can ice skate. A lot of people I know were either into figure skating or hockey. And so I myself, like my last name is like the last name of a really famous goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. And so I used to always use my last name to get into the clubs and the bars, even though he's like some like second uncle, like twice removed. And so like, whereas when I came to the US, I was like, you don't know who I am. Like, you don't know my last name. And they're like, no. And I'm like, it's a hockey player. But like everybody in Canada knows Ken Dryden. Like, it's just like a name, And so everything relates back to hockey in Canada, I would say.
Oh, now I'm mad at my last name. My last name is that of a serial killer from the 80s in Los Angeles. So if I give my last name, it's instant background check. Yours gets you into bars.
Yes, I know. Exactly.
I'm
Bars and
mad
free
at my
drinks.
parents again.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. All right. Here's my last question.
Yeah.
Being from Canada, you live in Los Angeles. I live in Los Angeles. How much do you thumb your nose at people when they say it's cold here?
Oh my God. Still totally. I do. I just unbelievable. Like this past week, it's been like chilly and like people are just like complaining. And I'm like, and I think the biggest thing for me is like drivers. Like as soon as it rains, it's just like all like just even today it was a little bit foggy and like there was somebody in the like fast lane driving at like 60 miles an hour. And I was like, are you friggin' serious? Like no one knows how to drive in weather here. But yeah, definitely like the cold factor just makes me laugh so much. But I have to say that I think I've become a little weak in like, I'm actually wearing like slightly like heavier clothing the longer I'm staying here. And I'm actually starting to find like, myself turning on like our little fireplace or something, or the heating in the evening. So I'm not going to lie. I think I'm starting to like, you do. Yeah.
I lost all my cold weather edge. I think about 2 months after moving here. It didn't take me long. I lost it. I used to be tough. I lived in Utah. I rode my bike all through the winter. I trained. I raced all over
Yeah,
the country, weather, and I lost it in no time here. But I do like
I agree.
how I like when it gets cold in LA because there's no consequences for it here. So if you miss
Hmm.
dress or something, you're okay. I like
Yeah,
seeing what everybody thinks a jacket is here. I like someone seeing the 58 degrees, denim. I need my denim jacket. I'll put the collar
yeah,
up if I need to. Or you'll see the chick with flip-flops on and a scarf, and you'll say,
yeah.
you got to pick a team at some point, sweetie.
Totally agree. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's, but I think like for us, it's almost like a badge of honor. So I insist on going camping like all year round. And it's like, I don't care how cold it is at night. I'm like, we're going camping. And it's like, and everyone's like, oh, you can't go camping in California in December. You're going to be cold at night. And I was like, no. Meanwhile, I'm like shivering in my tent, just like, it's just a matter of principle that I'm not going to give into it. But yeah, it is quite funny to see people or see everyone flocking to the mountains right now to go to the snow. And I'm just like, really? Like,
Go to the
oh
snow.
God.
Yeah, definitely. I like how every once in a while somebody like from the Midwest or something cold shames you, and you're like, oh, it's
Hmm.
kind of cold this morning, and they'll say like,
Yeah.
you think this is cold? This is a spring day for us. This is a spring
Yeah.
day for us. And I always think like, why do you think that's impressing us? Why do you think your worst day is our hardest day here? So sometimes you get
Totally.
the cold shaming from people. So
Yeah.
you
It's okay.
can't
You
win.
can just show them the picture of you on the beach, in the middle of December and just
Mm-hmm.
leave it at that. So you can get back at them.
Well, this is good. Thanks, Claire, for joining me. I think we covered some
Thank
good
you.
ground.
Awesome. This is really, really great. Thanks for like probing and like asking me all these questions. And it was really awesome.
And if you put on another wine and cheese event, I'm guaranteeing you at least a collared shirt from me.
Okay. But not with the white collar.
That's it. I'm throwing you off the Zoom.
Oh, sorry. I have like PTSD, right?
Thanks, Clara.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, that is the show, everyone. Thank you, Clara, for joining me. What an interview. What a talk. We hadn't talked in so long that all that catching up, that was a lot of fun. So thank you, Clara, for joining me this week on the show. Don't forget, everyone, my other show on the channel, the Sunday Night Talk, happens every Sunday night. We're talking NFL playoffs. We're talking football movies. It's heating up. You got to go listen to it. This Sunday, another one coming out. And catch me doing live stand-up comedy on the 23rd, Saturday, 5 p.m. Via Zoom, via the Flappers Comedy Show. You can see me. You've heard me rant on this show. Well, hear me rant about other stuff too through the Zoom. Other comics as well on that show. Going to be a lot of fun. Message me for details. They're really cool if you haven't experienced a Zoom comedy show. This might be the one to look out for. Hey, good times there. I want to thank everyone who listened to the show. Thank you, Clara, for joining me on this week's show. And next week, another show, another guest, more topics, more background, more life. How can you go wrong? Thank you, everyone. See you next time.